Hello guys, and welcome to the next video of tachograph tutorials of Transport Info. In this short video we're going to learn where to use the regulation, where to use 561 EU regulation, and what's the difference between 561 and AETR regulations. First of all, let's take a quick look on where to use the regulation, the EU regulation 561. This regulation shall apply irrespective of the country of registration of the vehicle to carriage by road undertaken exclusively within the community or between the community, Switzerland, and the countries party to the agreement on the European Economic Area. If necessary, you can look after the countries have been ratified the EEA agreement, so you can Google it. If necessary, you can see the blue parts, European Union, and the countries, like green, EFTA member states party to the EEA agreement, so easy to check if necessary. But within these countries, within the community, or between the community, Switzerland, and the countries party to the agreement, you have to use the 561. Let's move to the next point and let's see where to use the AETR agreement. The AETR shall apply instead of this regulation to international road transport operations undertaken in part outside the areas mentioned in paragraph 2. And let's see an A and B version. Vehicles registered in the community or in countries which are contracting parties to the AETR for the whole journey. And vehicles registered in a third country which is not a contracting party to the AETR only for the part of the journey on the territory of the community or of countries which are contracting parties to the AETR. Let me translate it, but before I do that, just let's take a quick look on AETR contracting parties. So here is a list. AETR countries like Albania, Andorra, Armenia, Belarus, Moldova, Montenegro, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, etc. These countries are the AETR countries. So we go back to the regulation and translate it to English. If you have a vehicle registered in the community, or if you have a vehicle registered in any contracting parties to the AETR, and you have an international road transport operation outside of the areas mentioned in paragraph 2, then you have to use the AETR agreement for the whole journey. So if you leave the community, if you leave the territories of EEA countries, and you head into a country which contracting parties to the AETR, then you have to use the AETR agreement for the whole journey. For example, if you started in Holland and you have a Dutch truck, and if you started in Holland and if you have to go to Albania, then you have to use the AETR agreement for the whole journey. By the way, the good news is there is no major difference between AETR and 561. So if you keep using the 561, you won't make a mistake. So that will do. Let's take a look on B. vehicles registered in a third country, which is not a contracting party to the AETR, only for the part of the journey on the territory of the community or of countries which are contracting parties to the AETR. Now, translated again. That means if you have a vehicle registered outside of the community, outside of the EEA, and outside of the contracting parties to the AETR, and if that truck wants to come over to the community or a country which is contracting parties to the AETR, then that truck and the driver has to apply the AETR agreement, but only for the part of the journey on the territory of the community or of countries which are contracting parties to the AETR. Let's do that on the map, because it's probably easier to understand. So, for example, we have a truck and a driver from Tunisia, and he wants to come over to Italy to do an international transport. So the point is, Tunisia is not contracting parties to the AETR agreement. Of course, he's not part of the community, and Tunisia is not part of the EEA. So that means if the Tunisian truck driver wants to come over to do a transport job in Italy, there and back, then he has to apply the AETR agreement, but only on the territory of the community, which is Italy in this case. So that's it. And finally, the provisions of the AETR should be aligned with those of this regulation, so that the main provisions in this regulation apply through the AETR to such vehicles for any part of the journey made within the community. And this job has done, so as I said before, between AETR agreement and this regulation, which is the 561 EU regulation from 2006, there is no major difference. So if you keep using the 561, you won't make any mistake. And here is a but. One thing which is very important at this stage, and the reason we have a but here, is the mobility package. Because the mobility package has arrived, and I just want to show you the mobility package has amended the 561 regulation, as we learned from the previous lesson. So let's take a look on that. You know this regulation from the previous video. This is 1054 from 2020, and this regulation, which is part of the mobility package, has amended the regulation 561 from 2006, and the point is it has amended this regulation also 165 from 2014, but you cannot read AETR agreement here. You cannot find AETR agreement, and that means you cannot use the new regulations, the new paragraph brought by mobility package in case you have to use the AETR agreement. Let me give you an example again. So go back to the map and zoom out. And now a real situation, a Dutch truck, let's say from Holland to Greece. Okay, that's a good one. So a Dutch truck hits the road in Holland, come over to Germany through Austria, Hungary, and let's say he has to drive through Serbia and then even North Macedonia and Greece. On this journey, on the whole journey, he has to use the AETR agreement, as he has to go through a territory of Serbia, which is contracting parties of the AETR agreement. And because of this, the driver cannot use the new regulations brought by mobility package. And I give you an example because mobility package brought a new paragraph regarding to multi-manning. A driver engaged in multi-manning may take a break of 45 minutes in a vehicle driven by another driver, provided that the driver taking the break is not involved in assisting the driver driving the vehicle. So that means if you have a multi-manning situation, according to the new regulation, according to the mobility package, now you don't need to take the 45 minutes if you have two drivers on board. So that means you can keep going. The AETR agreement doesn't provide you with this possibility. So even if you have two drivers on the board, after 4.5 hours driving, they have to stop the truck and they have to take the 45 minutes break. And they have to do this on the whole journey because they have to work according to AETR agreement on the whole journey from Holland to Greece and back. But there is a good news. We have a but again. The provisions of the AETR should be aligned with those of this regulation, and the working party is still working. So if we take a look on the United Nations legislators, and we have the tachograph working party, which is actually the working party on road transport, and this is the Inland Transport Committee. And the next meeting will be held on 21st of February, and they just keep working and they will harmonize the 561 EU regulations and the AETR agreement. So the two regulations just getting closer and closer. Hopefully it will be easier. So that means I hope it's just a short time and you will be able to use the new options and the new regulations brought by the mobility package in case if you need to go a country which is contracting party to the AETR agreement. But for now, that's the situation. So keep your eyes open. As I used to say, just keep your money in your wallet. If you have any question, just leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.